Right, hello everyone, we're actually doing cross stitch today, unlike last time where I was just lining, everything's connected up at the back. And so we're doing this really nice one. If you can't recognise the characters on this at this point, it's Winnie the Pooh and his friend Piglet. Let me know in the comments below if you know what gender Piglet is, because I've got no clue. This is a special little cross stitch for a special someone in my life, and you'll see Winnie the Pooh isn't especially romantic or anything, but the words that go with it is kind of romantic, or at least quasi-romantic. So yeah, it's quite a nice cross stitch. I feel as though it's quite in the art style that goes along with most of the kind of traditional Winnie the Pooh books. I don't know. Okay, I was seeing like the Winnie the Pooh cartoon, a bit of that when I was younger. That was made by Disney, and it's just like, I don't mind modern animation, it's all cool, but doing it to like Winnie the Pooh when it's got such a classic art style, and I understand you want to make stuff which is like modernized and kids like it, and it's quick and easy to produce, fast TV, almost like fast fashion kind of thing. I can understand why you want to do that rather than make a genuinely like beloved children's product like Winnie the Pooh. And like, oh, if they were to do like all the proper art style and that, and like, oh, I would love it. Like, I don't know, like, I reckon kids at the time wouldn't care about it, but then like adults would love it, who's like read Winnie the Pooh as kids, because I mean, what kids nowadays read? It's quite sad, kids not reading, because I've always read a lot because my parents have encouraged me, school encouraged me, and I was a nerd. And still reading today is like one of the best things you can do, in terms of just like learning stuff, and particularly learning stuff like you don't learn otherwise. So you know, some books are just fun books, like Terry Pratchett. Most of his books I think are just fun to me. Sometimes they make like not too serious points about the real world, or at least draw parallels to it, and you know, I don't think his literature is stuff we need to look too deeply into, because it's not that serious, boys. It's not that deep for the TP. Literally, I've never realised that was immature thing. But you know, like, I'm reading stuff like Stephen Fry's retelling of the Greek myths, I guess. It's called Mythos. It's on my bedside table. It's really good. Then there's stuff like, I'm reading The Greedy Capitalist, which is kind of almost kind of like a sequel to a book called Affluenza, which is a really interesting book. It looks like I've never heard of Affluenza, but you know, it's got different. It's got a following, let's say, and so yeah, and that's a really interesting book on economics. I'm getting through a bit of George Orwell at the moment. I've got like, I've read Animal Farm at school, so I know like the gist of that book in total, and it's kind of like an anti-communist, anti-totalitarian book, and yeah, I enjoyed that book. I think it's got a decent message. I think in the modern times people maybe take it a little too far in terms of like, oh, communism is evil, we can get anything but communism, especially how people brand anything communism. Like, I think, like, if you look at the UK, Jeremy Corbyn, yeah, he was, like, probably would say he's a communist. He openly said he's a socialist. And you know, so I think it's a bit, I don't know, in some ways a bit trendy to call yourself a communist if you're on the left. In some ways, people who are like right are too quick to call things communist when they're not really at all. So it's whatever. But anyway, but I think kind of the message of the book is very anti-totalitarian, as much as anti-communist. As Orwell, in a quote towards the end of his life, he said, kind of, from 1936 onwards, my writing became one against totalitarianism and for social democracy, which is a very much kind of a statement which wouldn't be. The social democracy is kind of a left leaning philosophy, but obviously it's not communist. it's not totalitarian, it still gives people a vote, but yeah, it's not free market capitalism at any length of the means. And I can't see why, like in the 1930s, how he could openly say I'm for free market capitalism, when in the 1920s, yeah, it was great, it was loads of prosperity, but it led to the 1930s depression. So having the market being open, having different things going on, having anyone be able to invest in the stock market, it just was a bad idea. Maybe they didn't realise back then, because stock markets were a relatively new thing. People being able to invest on mass scale was a new thing. So, you know, maybe it just was something that never happened before, and kind of people paid the price for it. And now we know that free market capitalism isn't a good idea. It needs some amount of regulation. It needs some amount of guidance to make sure it works for people and doesn't end up in disaster. And ultimately, I agree with that. We do need to have guidance in the economy other than just pure money, in terms of like hospitals and stuff. The value to an individual is almost infinite, because if you don't have it, you may or will lose your life. I'd say, like, in general, you may lose your life because you don't have a hospital. It's not like every day, if you don't get to a hospital, then you're going to die. But it's certainly like, oh, if you break your leg, you're gonna need a hospital. I'm pretty sure most people in kind of Western 21st century society will sooner or later break a bone. I've only broken my toe. That's my broken bone, but it's kind of like a given thing. Like, you're going to break a bone sooner or later in your life. I don't know many people who haven't broken an arm or a leg at some point, like because you just can't avoid the risk. Like, if you're just staying at home and just cross stitch all day, yeah, you're not going to break anything. But you got to go outside, go for a walk, do some exercise. How long are we on? Because I feel it's like I dropped the thing, because I didn't drop my thread. How long have we done for? 7 minutes. I can see my t-shirt actually in frame today. It's my NCS t-shirt, National Citizenship Service. I did it a few years ago. The government was pumping money into it, so it's like essentially 30 quid for a pretty good programme. And yeah, it's good, but it's like, it felt to me, it's like they should have been, you need to put more money into schools to do this kind of thing, like not splash out the cash for this, because it seemed like almost as though they were I think NCS and all that's a charity, most likely. It seemed like they were putting all this money into it to kind of plug the fact that kids aren't well schooled in just kind of life and interpersonal skills. So it's good. I really enjoyed it. I met some really good people, made some really good friends, helped my interpersonal skills. Was it that critical for me because I've done Duke of Edinburgh? Well, I think it helped, like, because I could still, it was different than Duke of Edinburgh. It gave you a different experience than Duke of Edinburgh. But I think generally it was a good thing for me. Would I need all the subsidies and stuff they gave me? Yeah. Possibly, like, I would need some of it, because they claimed that kind of the total cost was like in the thousands. Like, I could like conceivably see my parents or me paying like up to about £500, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less, for that kind of thing. So yeah, I don't really know. Starting with Piglet. Yeah. Right, slight interruption there, but I'm going to wrap up very shortly. But kind of my thought is on Piglet is that kind of his outline, in the pattern I'm going off, it says to do the brown that's on Winnie the Pooh, which I don't think flies with me. But I don't like this grey either, so maybe I'm going to try black next, I think. Just go for like a full-on 310 black. If you don't know what 310 is, it's the colour for black on DMC thread. So I'm going to get that out, I think. I'm going to do that between this and the next video. I'm going to leave it here. So have a nice day, and yeah, hopefully it's all chill in the hood.